by Mr. Tim Seanor. Good to have you back on the UFO Report. How you doing, man?
Doing well, Dave. How are you?
I am doing great. We are only about 3.5 weeks out from going to Denver for
That's right.
MUFON Symposium. And I am pumped right up about that. You're going to be there with me, and we're going to meet up with Thin Lizzie from our weekend crew and her husband, Scary Gary, and a number of other really cool people out there. I'm stoked, man. I am absolutely stoked.
Oh, it's going to be trouble. It's going to be trouble getting us all together in the same place. Forget about it. I can't wait.
Oh, dude, tell me about it. One of the things that I'm looking forward to is every time you go to these conferences, there's always new people who you've only seen their face or heard their voice, but you actually get to see them, and you're like, oh my God, like that's Katie Grabowski, or that's Dave McDonald, or that's Michael Schratt, or whomever it may be. You know?
Right. And 9 times out of 10, they're totally approachable, and they've got an equally interesting story when you meet them. So it's great. It's a fun time to mix.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and what a show tonight. You've got sharks and ghosts. I can't look away for a second. I'm like going to have nightmares tonight.
Scared the daylights out of me. That damn Max Hawthorne. I'm telling you that this is why I don't go in the ocean, man. This is why I don't go in the ocean. There is just way too much that could hurt you, harm you, kill you, eat you. You know how it goes, man. And I'm not like you, man. I'm a meal. Okay. You're like
I'm an hors d'oeuvre.
You're not even an hors d'oeuvre, man. Not even an hors d'oeuvre. I'm a meal.
Well, it'd be hard. I'm hard to catch. When I'm in the ocean, I'm usually on my board. So like I said, I sense it when there's something I actually, whenever I surf, I do get a feeling. And like, if I get that feeling, I just get out. I don't know if there's something underneath me or not, but I do get spooked out there. And I think a lot of people do. Just got to be in touch with that. Just go with your instinct. If your gut says get out, get out.
Well, your first story of the night, I am personally going to take credit for.
I knew you were going to love it. Yeah.
Because this doesn't happen if it wasn't for Dave.
That's right.
Dave did this. Dave 100%. Is the one who made this happen. And you know what? I'm not even giving ego on this, man. Not even giving ego.
Right.
So I'm going to give you, while I sit here and pat my own back, I'm going to give you the story that Canada has officially announced they are going to share UFO info with the United States. And this all started February of 2021 when I got Lou Elizondo to meet up with officials and members of parliament of the Canadian government. That's when it all started. Right. And here we are today. So what's going on?
So, as you know, Dave, fantastic work, by the way. This is just great stuff. And so in recent letters that have been made public between Kathleen Hepel-Masis and Larry Maguire, the MP, we're talking about collaboration between governments and sharing of data, and some of the research that's already been done by Canada looking into some of the incursions of potential UFO, UAP, or drones over some of the nuclear facilities that are around the country. And in conjunction with the United States, they're going to start looking into some of their UAP, UFO, and potential drone incursions over some of their nuclear facilities. So it's a matter of comparing notes and starting to get into a collaborative potential working relationship between the two countries where we can actually hone in on what this is rather than more conjecture. And so some of the key players are now starting to really take notice. And it does seem like the movements that have been part of public hearings and congressional hearings here in the United States are starting to resound around the world, with other countries like China and Russia, and now Canada getting on board, sharing data, getting into the know with the rest of the planet on what could potentially be coming in and current over our nuclear facilities to start, but really all over our planet and all over our skies. They're everywhere.
And you
Dave.
know what? It had to start somewhere, Tim. And in Canada, Larry Maguire, who is in opposition with the Conservative Party of Canada and is the, critic, what we call up here a critic to the natural resources, he is the one who used information that was public on whether or not UAPs had been seen over nuclear power facilities. Now, from what I know, they were looking for an in order to get this story out in Canada. You just can't go on the floor of the House of Commons and ask the Minister of Defense, hey, by the way, do we have UFOs flying over us? That doesn't work that way. You need to have something where there is some sort of vital security type threat. If we use that, the fact that drones or orbs had been seen and recorded over Canadian nuclear power facilities, because we do not have any nuclear missile silos in Canada, well, that coincided and put the door open to the idea that what Robert Salas had been saying regarding the missile crisis back in the 60s and 70s around Minot in North Dakota, all the way over to Malmstrom in Montana, that we were able to, how can we put it, open the door to that conversation, or at least Larry Maguire was. So
Right.
the fact that now Larry Maguire had been pressuring a gentleman named John Hannaford, who is the Deputy Minister to Natural Resources in Canada, to learn about this. And Maguire also pressured the staff of Canada's nuclear power facilities to start talking to their American counterparts regarding UAP. This is just the beginning. The door is now open between the two nations publicly. Look, we're not going to get what NORAD has got out of Canada. We're not going to get that. There's still a lot of stuff that needs to come out. Now, Maguire wants full disclosure, as he stated on this show. But, I mean, you got to open the door somewhere. And unlike NASA, I think this is a great way to start. It really is.
Right. And so these letters were obviously in direct response to questions that were raised by Manitoba Member Parliament Larry Maguire, raised in the parliamentary committee meetings earlier this year. And so I'm assuming that that's around the time that this information was kind of being disseminated. And we started making those discussions between the United States and Canada public. And so obviously this comes shortly after the unclassified reports that were released in the United States. And so now Congress is obviously taking the issue seriously. And so now Canada's like, so should our government.
And I fully agree. There's still a lot of news that has to come out. Okay, we know, and we got to start putting pressure on. We know Prime Minister Trudeau was read in. We know that. We know it happened between August of 2019 and December of 2019. We know it happened. He was read in by former ambassador to the United States, David McNaughton. Okay, and this is all stuff that we had been saying for the last couple of years, trying to be one of the voices along with Daniel Otis, who is very on top of this information.
Right. Could I ask, Dave, why do you think Canada is focusing on the UAP reports concerning nuclear facilities, whereas the United States seem, even from the beginning, to be focused more on what they would consider, quote unquote, a threat narrative, and that's how they kind of released it, whereas Canada seems to be a little bit more progressive with their focus and seem to come out kind of in more of a fact-based manner rather than potentially fear-based manner like the Americans did.
The one thing that our politicians, and it's not an us versus them,
No,
our
I
military,
understand.
when and I'm going to give a little bit of insider information here, and I can't say where I got it from. Okay,
Please.
they knew the files were out there, and they knew where those files were. The problem that they had was the files are so scattered in Ottawa between Canada's security agency, CSIS, the Canadian Department of National Defence, Transport Canada, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the NAV Canada, which controls all navigation in Canada, and a number of other alphabet agencies, that they really didn't know where to start or begin in order to get the information, because there is no centralized area. That is the goal of the Conservative government. And Larry Maguire stated on this show he's got support from other parties now, except with the exception of the party in power, which is the Liberal Party of Canada, to set up a centralized organization to try and bring all the UFO files under one roof. That's what they want. And whether they get it or not, that is going to be very different. So they needed a way to not come at this from a threat narrative perspective, but a cautionary perspective of how is this affecting Canada, or potentially affecting Canada, which could have consequences not only in the most populous province of Ontario, but Eastern Canada as well. Because out west, we don't have any nuclear power facilities. They are only from Ontario, Eastern, all the way to Newfoundland. And this is where we needed to get that in. Maguire needed a way to get it out to the public. He has been looking at this subject since 2017. And he and his staff members needed a way to finally break that open. Now, there are other politicians that are looking into this. One is on the defense portion. One is on the RCMP, trying to figure out what is going on. I'm still waiting for a couple of phone calls from people that have not arrived yet. And I'm hoping maybe next week, if I get an opportunity to do so, I am going to hit the phones. I may try for a couple of FOIA requests as well regarding the Prime Minister being read in 2019, as well as I want to know if there's any videos. There are video cameras all perched all over Canada's nuclear facilities. And if there are UFOs flying over there, they may have videos. And the only way we're going to see those videos is via potentially a FOIA request. So we need to be able to make those. But in Canada, they're not called FOIA requests. They're called access to information requests. So that is something that we have to try and work on, moving this ball forward with the Canadian story. And I think the Canadian story, and our American listeners may not agree with this, but I think the Canadian story and it heating up more here, if this little fire continues to grow, it could be of major help to the United States people who want full disclosure and not just confirmation, which is what we're getting right now. Tim Seanor will return right after this on the UFO Report, and we are going to get into China's Sky High. What did it find? And then the aerial phenomena movie. We'll get into that as well on the UFO Report, coming up next, right after the break. Hi, Chili B7, Cliff Psy. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, gorgeous Kim Jellin. Corbanian, how you doing? Who else was in here? SP, the gorgeous Jenny girl, how are you? And Die Behind the Wheel, welcome to SOR Chat. And who else is here that is coming on in? Wayek, welcome to SOR Chat. And I think we is good and caught up right there. There we go.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, bud. The timing is so sweet. With NASA getting on board with their own investigations, do you have any knowledge of a potential task force over there in the Maple Leaf country?
It won't happen until the liberals make it happen. They're too busy and I'm not throwing a political pot shot here. This is an honest observation. They're too busy trying to save their own asses and be woke at the same time that they don't care about anything that is of a defensive or a, how can I put it? Let's just call it a defensive nature right now. Okay. They're trying to figure out a way to stop the bleeding, and if we had, if they hadn't cut a deal with one of the parties to remain in power, then who knows? There's another Trudeau scandal that's coming forward, and
did you find the letters that were released questionable as far as the wordage as to how they've handled UAP cases in the past and the potential that they may have discarded data? And so there are no cases per se.
Oh, there's a lot of cases. There's a lot.
According to the letters, there were no cases of unidentified or even drone incursions over nuclear facilities in Canada. That's what the letter stated.
McGuire found 3. He found 3. The rest of them, they don't know.
Well, do you know details? Please do tell.
That's why I'm saying we need to put in a access to information request regarding potential videos.
Okay. Didn't Canada have a major data release earlier this year with lots of cases?
Well, they did, but I mean that's all stuff that they had already given to Chris Rutkowski. The juicy stuff. I mean, we're talking dots in the sky, okay, but the juicy stuff, what we want, that's all still top secret, right?
Right.
Kim Jones, CTV News, thanks to Daniel Otis, has really taken a lead on this. And thanks to us, other media outlets like Saga 960, where we broadcast, are also taking a really big push on this as well.
Right. So there's definitely some slippery wordage in page 3 where there's a paragraph that, dignifies the fact that a lot of the data gets dumped, over in a timely fashion as routine. And then in the next paragraph says that there are no recorded cases. And so I just found, the disclaimer right before the disclosure, quote unquote, was rather disheartening as far as something in paperwork, as far as I was personally concerned. But it definitely showed that the steps were being taken. And, kind of it made me feel that it is a trickle of information. And even in this country, we've seen it be baby steps. These are small steps towards a big goal.
For sure. I think it would be absolutely massive if we got a UAP video out of Canada. I think it would be as big in the States as it would up here. And I think it would be bigger in the States than it would be here. Thank you to Dirty Fylth for his amazing art tonight. And he has pulled the plug on the evening and said, screw it, my hands are sore. I'm done for the night. Thank you, Dirty Fylth. You are amazing. Love you, buddy. And we've got about 30 seconds here before we're going to run here to the final half hour of the show. And Tim Seanor is here tonight.
Do you have your speech ready?
Haven't even started.
Attaboy. I love procrastinators.
Me too. Makes for the best. Here we go, guys. second, and third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the UFO Report. We have Tim Seanor sitting by us right now. And Tim, you know, coming out of China, are you buying this story that they may have been picking up signals from aliens? Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, it's still up in the air, and definitely there's people on both sides of this story that have their own opinions. And so it all started with a headline that said, China says it may have detected signals from alien civilizations. And then it was picked up by a report website of Science and Technology Daily in China, and it's just gone around the world as a potential real case and a real story. And so rumors are bound, but the truth seems to be that it's not necessarily aliens phoning us from across the cosmos. It might just be us. And so it has Chinese astronomers stumbling upon the techno signature of a distant alien civilization. Unfortunately for UFO Tragic and Area 51 fans, the answer is no. But numerous reports over the last 72 and more so hours have suggested that an anomalous radio signal from deep space could point to extraterrestrial technology. I personally am pretty skeptical, but we have seen these signatures come up in the past. And along with a few serious news agencies in China, they have a lot of people wondering if the real problem is that the media jumps straight on aliens every time, or if we have to look deeper into some of the information before we necessarily rule it out. Dave, what are your thoughts?
You know what? There's two ways of thinking here. I want to believe, I really do, but it's China. Okay? And knowing how a communistic government works and the way they know how to use propaganda, especially to popularize themselves, I don't know whether or not we should believe this. Right. I really don't.
Right. Well, the leak actually originally came from the scientific study researchers themselves, and they leaked it originally to other SETI researchers. And so soon between the group amongst themselves, they were deciphering over these weak signals. Non-repeating signals are often something that they look into a little deeper. And so our American astrophysicists, such as John T. Horner, have been looking into this from the University of Southern Queensland. And in fact, believe it or not, there are some questionable possibilities that this could be a signal from deep space. So although it's easy to jump away from aliens, we can't 100% rule it out. It's just often media hypes it up to the point where we just automatically rule it out because we see aliens. But again, this was and I can even say it's a radio frequency interference, or an RFI, that can sometimes come from cell phones, TV transmitters, radio, satellites, and even a device you're reading this article from or watching this show from. So a lot of the RF signals that they could be receiving could be mundane, coming as an earthly origin. But still, a lot of people are still considering it a potential.
And it could very well be, Tim. It could very well be, you know, but I just look at the games that have been played. If it was, say, Portugal or Romania or heck, even Egypt or South Africa or Australia, I mean, name a country. I'm not just saying an allied country, but name India or Thailand. If it was any other country, I would, and they said, hey, this looks like it could be from an alien civilization, I'm buying it. But on
Mm-hmm.
the flip side, okay, so that's
You're
my
questioning the source.
I'm questioning the source. But on the flip side, it is rather odd that it comes from the Chinese UFO community, and that the story has somewhat disappeared since it came out. Why would they make it disappear?
Right.
It's not being found on Weibo, their version of Facebook. It's
Very
not being,
quickly. Yeah,
yeah.
removed.
So obviously something or someone got in the way of that story, and that adds to the mystique to me, where maybe they did find something,
And
and
whitewash it.
well,
Yeah.
not just that, but they want to keep it away from the Americans,
Yeah.
because they don't want the Americans to get any sort of love on this, when this could be a big Chinese story. So
Right.
I could see both sides. This is where I'm sitting 50-50 on this.
Yeah, that's my problem on it too. And I've read, as much as I could find on it. And I was really split down the middle as to whether it was even something that was worth their time to look deeper into. Could it just be a mundane RF signal of our own? But then I keep referring back to one of my favorite films, Contact, where, there's an edge of reality to everything that happens. And so, I'm a little bit split down the middle, and I encourage everyone just to look a little bit deeper. Don't just consider it, a no. Just, look a little deeper and make your own mind up.
Absolutely. Absolutely freaky, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely freaky. All right, let's go to your final story. We've all been talking about for years this school in in Africa that allegedly had a UFO landing and aliens talking to young students, called Ariel. And
that's right.
there is now a movie out regarding this. And I'll tell you, if there is any story that is profound in this industry, I believe it's this one, man. Tell us about it.
Taking place in Rua, Zimbabwe. That's right. In 1994, over 60 children witnessed an unidentified craft land outside their schoolyard. And 25 years later, this incident is still fresh in all those students' memories. So they all continue to search for answers and the courage to speak their truth. In this first feature documentary about the Ariel School UFO incident, a young woman returns to her school in rural Zimbabwe, the place that, at age 9, shattered her reality. And we get to meet a respected BBC war reporter who reluctantly covered this event, ultimately leading him to risk his career on the one story that haunted him the most, jeopardizing his reputation. And Pulitzer Prize winning Harvard psychiatrist John Mack, whose validation of these witnesses made this mass sighting impossible to ignore. And so this film follows a BBC war reporter and Harvard's psychiatrist, Dr. John Mack, through the journeys back to rural Ariel school, and interviews all of the children. And so in this hour and a half long documentary, you can get a really great inside look at what really took place. And it did it in such a beautiful way. I absolutely love what Randall Nickerson did with this film. A 4-year project of passion, and you can absolutely see it in every inch of film that he portrays here.
Well, you know what, too, John, about this case is these children didn't
John.
ask. Or I'm
You
sorry.
called me
Yeah,
John. I love
I'm
that.
sorry.
Those are
I
big shoes to fill, buddy.
They are. They are. But and thank you for filling in for him, Tim.
My pleasure.
The one thing that really sets this case apart is these children wanted nothing of this. They didn't know anything about this. They weren't podcast. I mean, granted, 94 there was no podcasting, but they weren't looking for exposure or their 15 minutes of fame like many people coming in to the UFO community, over the years. And we've seen it all happen over the years as well. And these children just want to know what went on and how it went on. And they knew from that moment on, when that spaceship landed and those creatures came out of that spaceship and started communicating with them, they knew that their lives would be forever changed from that moment. And in a way that very few humans actually get the opportunity to do that. And I feel for these kids. They're no longer kids. They're pushing late 30s, early 40s now. But they are to the point. Are they that old? Maybe 30s. 1994. So what is that? That's 20, 28 years ago. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're pushing late 30s. And the idea that they have had to live with this and the messages and see the world change not for the better in front of them. It's scary, man. It's scary.
It
That's a
is.
fearful life.
Potentially, or it could be an enlightened life. A lot of you, if you have a chance to see the documentary, everyone, I recommend it, because there's a lot of showing how the children did progress, because they do come back and talk about it later. And some of them do have different opinions of the message, perhaps, and how they interacted with that information from their childhood and how it affected their life. I think it's really insightful. And again, like I said, beautifully shot, really not fancy, very, very like classic filmmaking, like good film, like good documentary filmmaking, where it's just beautifully sewn together, and he weaves a few different narratives throughout. It's really a great piece. And again, let's consider this huge fact that most people that are considered a UFO researcher or a historian, they point to this case as being the best case. And so let's definitely discover every bit of information there is. And this documentary obviously is like digging deep. And I must say, there's footage in there I have definitely never seen before, drawings I've never seen before, and a lot of insight on a case that was hugely impactful to this field. And to see the impact, again, like I said, on those witnesses and some of the school teachers that are revisiting it, I think lend a huge amount of credibility to it. It's an emotional ride. It really is. You can't miss it.
Well, you know what? We've seen the impact of a number of UFOs, UAP, this year. I mean, whether it is this one that's just coming out, we've seen a very powerful one from 1097 Productions and Caroline Corey with the UAPX crowd, A Tear in the Sky.
Tear in the Sky was fantastic.
It was. We've seen other ones come out from places like Third Phase of Moon, and over the last 6-8 months, there's been a number of them that have shot out of the cannon. And I'll tell you, the intrigue that this is bringing is at an all high time level, and the right people are speaking in these documentaries. The right people are doing the research. And, I'm not about to sit here and gripe and complain and say which one is better. So far, I've liked them all. I really have. And probably the reason why is we're using people who in the 90s and 2000s weren't on every documentary with the same message, just under a different name.
That's right. And
And
also at a time when it was highly stigmatized, right? People would get in a lot of trouble and were, ousted from positions in the BBC or at Harvard. Not all the way, but we remember how John Mack was treated. Well, this film highlights it and the life's work of these people in a beautiful way. And so absolutely, I think it does show the fact that this narrative is changing on this topic, and that is coming out with a lot of great filmmakers that are highlighting this topic. You're so right.
no, I think it's wonderful. And the best part about it is it really seems like it's going to continue for a while. And let's hope it does, because I know you have talked to a number of people who have interest in putting stuff on tape now. It's not just about the radio shows anymore or the podcasts or the YouTube channels. People want this documented. And I think with the more we see fighter pilots coming out, the more we see scientists starting to come out with their facts and figures, and the more we see the reins starting to loosen on many people, whether it's Elizondo, whether it's Cahill, or whether it's anybody, we need to make sure that we pay attention to those hidden messages that are going to be inside, because it's not all going to be nuts and bolts. It's all not going to be facts and figures. There are going to be some big documentaries coming up, I think, within the next 5 years that should blow our socks off. Can you imagine if a proper documentary on Lou Elizondo is done? What's he going to release? Especially if his book ever gets published, what happens after that? It's going to be amazing.
I would love there to be the film. But, you know, you're absolutely right. This is going to be a topic that is just going to continue. And the more people that have the talent to tell the narrative, I think the better. The more witnesses that are encouraged to come out with their evidence or their story, I think the better. I mean, just in your chat, I'm sure that 9 out of 10 have an amazing story that they could share with us. But, you know, potentially they're just putting their toe in the water by being a listener and getting the experience of being able to listen to all the other people that are having these fantastic experiences. I mean, I myself am an experiencer, and I remember being able to come out on your show. That's a privilege to be able to share publicly. And as much as you offer that platform, I'm sure your audience appreciates hearing those stories in one way or another, being able to relate. And so, again, this is an ever-changing topic. And like you said, our opinions could change tomorrow. But for right now, it's amazing. And potentially, it's one of the greatest scientific discoveries and topics of our generation. I definitely believe that.
You got that.